It's funny because before we came live on the show, you said, "Hey, I didn't make it to the end of the Buffs game. Did they end up winning?" And I said yes. And so it's crazy. Same thing actually happened with me. I didn't catch the end of the Bears game. They ended up getting that dub.
Well, yeah, they had a 96.4% chance of winning, and they had all 11 players completely paying attention on the field, and they had the perfect Hail Mary defense on, and they knocked the ball down, and the Bears are 5-2. And everybody in Chicago is happy, and other than everything I just said happening, that's exactly how it played out. Fran, come on, man, help me out with what in the world was going on at the end of that football game.
I mean, look, you have Tyrique Stevenson out there celebrating and jawing with fans as the play is starting. Like the ball is snapped, Jayden Daniels is retreating in the pocket, and Tyrique Stevenson is looking into the stands, into the back through the back of the end zone. You can't make it up. And then the defense was like horrific. The only guy that seemed like he was doing his job in the back seven was Jalen Johnson, boxing out down near the goal line. Noah Brown by himself in the end zone, perfectly executed by everybody on Washington's side. Jayden Daniels buying time, letting things set up downfield, delivering a great throw on the move, going to his left, and you get the tip ball. Noah Brown again by himself, just inexcusable, certainly from the Chicago back seven.
Yeah, I don't even know. First of all, I think that there needs to be like a rule mandated that you're not allowed to rush 3 on a Hail Mary ever.
Unreal.
There's so many examples. In fact, there's no way for me to prove this off the top of my head, but I bet you if you right now like compiled all the successful Hail Marys in the last 20 years, 90% of them there'd be rush 3 by the defense. I hate it. I don't understand it. That's how Aaron Rodgers had all those Hail Marys back in the day. It blows my mind that anybody does that. And then on top of it, look, we got through 30 minutes, RK, of our CHGO Bears postgame show before I even knew that that viral video was starting to go around of Tyrique Stevenson not even paying attention for the first 5 to 7 seconds of the play because he was too busy in the corner of the end zone, jawing with the fans and waving to them. Just amazing that could ever happen in an NFL game with a professional player. And then it turns out, based on people I've texted with and looked at some Hail Mary diagrams that are out there too of how this is normally drawn up, and adding that into what Matt Eberflus said after the game, I'm about 99.9% sure that his job on that play was to guard the back line and be what they call the savior to knock it down. So when you put that into context too, all I can tell you guys, somebody who's been covering this team as long as I have, who's done so many post-game shows after double doinks and all types of losses that you don't even think are possible. This one might top them all, quite frankly, because it was one thing to give up a Hail Mary. It was another to find out 30 minutes later that one of the 11 players, and probably the guy responsible for not letting happen what happened, was not even paying attention at the beginning of the play. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and have you seen the screenshot? I'm sure you've seen everything at this point, but the screenshots of the Bears fans who are pointing to it, like it was Bears fans who were like, "Hey, the play is happening," and that's when he finally turned around. Honest question. I'm sure there's plenty of Bears fans who want heads to roll, and like I think that offense from Tyrique Stevenson is like bad enough. That you could get cut for it. Are the Bears in a position to be able to cut Tyrique Stevenson?
So I made this my raw reaction. This is what's awesome about what we do, right? With our post game shows across all city. And so I literally we wrapped up a segment with Lance Briggs and Corey Wooten, 2 former Bears players who we already broke down like everything went wrong defensively. These are guys that played in the NFL, knows how the play is supposed to work. Again, this was right before Greg Braggs came back on the set and then showed us the video of Tyrique Stevenson and kind of did it live for our raw reaction. And right there I go, he cannot play next week. He needs to be a healthy scratch. He's too talented to cut outright RK. He's a second-round pick. In fact, Tyrique Stevenson made 3 touchdown saving plays in this game. Like, that's the part that sucks, too. Like, he's a huge reason why the Commanders were settling for so many field goals and not scoring touchdowns. If this last play hadn't happened, or he had been paid attention and been the guy who knocked it down, I mean, he would have been a hero in the city this week. And instead, he's the GOAT now, the wrong kind of GOAT. And but I don't know how you can, like, if you're going to have any type of accountability in your building, to me, he's got to be a healthy scratch next week, just to show that, like, something that egregious at this level just cannot stand.
Yeah, the way I kind of look at it is that they'll probably approach this from like a good cop, bad cop type of situation. So whether it's Eberflus that's coming at this hard tomorrow or Tuesday, whenever they have their next full team meeting, and you show that play and you show all the angles and you talk through everything. Obviously, look, all the players, I mean, they know the deal coming into the building the next time they're in, right? So whoever it is that's kind of carrying that heavy stick, then you need somebody else, whether that's the coordinator, the DB coach, vets in the room, whoever that is. They now have to like kind of take Tyrique Stevenson by the side, say, all right, like, hey, like, young guy, like, we have to learn from this, because we're going to need you down the stretch if we're going to be the kind of team that we want to be, right? If we're going to reach our goals here moving forward. And the Chicago Bears obviously still have high hopes moving forward. You still want to challenge potentially for the North, but namely for one of those wild card spots, and they're going to need Tyrique Stevenson in order to get there. And so I'll be interested to see if there is any kind of punishment. But my guess is, especially the kind of knowing, how my understanding of Eberflus and just that organization, and Adam, you could speak to this in terms of just how they want to be able to connect with those guys. I think that they would probably kind of handle it that way. It's not going to be full court press on Stevenson and make an example. My guess is you got to kind of try to make it a learning experience for a talented young player.
Yeah, I think the frustrating thing is there's nothing this egregious that's happened, but like, they had an issue with Chase Claypool last year where he was just like flat out not playing with effort, and they dragged their feet on holding him accountable, and then eventually just got to the point where by the time they did it, there was too much drama and stuff going around. And so I don't know. I mean, they have a good backup in Terrell Smith, who's healthy now. So you could even just, from a coaching standpoint, you never want to expose your defense by, leaving a guy out there. But they do kind of have the depth to handle this. It'll be interesting, because but here's the other part of this too. If we're going to talk about, how the coaching staff handles stuff, I just tweeted this out right before we started, guys. These are win probabilities the Bears have had in the fourth quarter of the last 2 seasons. And I know one of these games, RK, well, because against the Broncos last year, the Bears had a 98.1% chance of winning that football game. In Detroit last year against a good Lions team, they had a 98.2% chance of winning the game in the fourth quarter. Against Cleveland last year on the road, 91% chance. And then tonight, right before that Hail Mary, it was 96.4. The Bears somehow lost all 4 of those games. And that's in a results-based business. I've probably been more on the side of like defending Matt Eberflus for the most part. I thought it counted for something, that all the drama they had earlier last year, including that game they blew to the Broncos, RK, that he managed to hold the locker room together. They got their quarterback. They were 4-2 coming into this game. They should be 5-2 now if they could just defend a Hail Mary. But when you start to look at, I think his road record's now 3-17 or something over 3 years, and 4 losses like that where you have a high 90% chance of winning that you blow in the fourth quarter. Those starting to add up to a point where it's just hard to defend the guy anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the old, losing is a habit, winning is a habit thing, right? It's when you've done it so much, things like this somehow just happen. And I think, anyone who's followed their team when they're in a down spot still see it happen. And even when you're starting to climb out, you still have some of those demons that you have to find a way to get over. And, maybe it's not this season. I'm sure it will come soon for the Bears, but that's tough. And I do want to say, like, I wasn't calling for Tyrique Stevenson's head. I just figured that's probably part of the conversation. I actually think he deserves a little bit of credit for already kind of taking it head on, apologizing, and putting himself out there tonight.
Real quick on that, he did tweet out the apology to Chicago and teammates. My apologies for lack of awareness and focus. The game isn't over until zeros hit the clock. Can't take anything for granted. Notes taken. Improvement will happen. So credit for him. What I'm just gonna say is, would have carried a little bit more weight with me if he had spoken in the media after the game, but he didn't.
Sure.
And it's always easy to fire off a tweet later when you're not in front of cameras. I'll just say that part, but he did tweet it. We'll see how it's handled. I know the ex-Bears players we have on our shows all felt like that's a situation where he needs to apologize in person to his teammates and in a team meeting. Maybe that happens tomorrow. We'll find out.
We all silly like the mayor.